right, everyone, welcome into Happy Hour Hot Stove every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time until we get into baseball season. We're going to be doing an hour just of baseball content. It's a Ryan Ripken Show edition, and with me, we got myself, obviously, Zach Bollinger, and Mr. Rocco DeSangro that's going to help lead the ship here. And Rock, we got, as everyone, if you don't know, 4 burners, 4 topics. And there's a whole lot to talk about because we've missed a little bit of time, but we're getting right to it.
Yeah, absolutely. On this episode, and by the way, Rip, you screwed up the name of the show already. Good job. It's the Hot Stove Happy Hour, not the Happy Hour Hot Stove. So come on, get it right. Let's figure this thing out. But
Rocco, good to see you.
Good to
Carl,
see you, man.
Good to see you.
Better intro than last time when I was tapping on the screen.
I was getting worried, Rocco, because I could see you moseying around in the background while it was ticking down to like 17 seconds, and I was like, he's not going to get back.
I have a weak bladder. Drank a lot of coffee today, so had to use the young men's room in my house, and then I had to put some stuff in the dishwasher. So here we are. Anywho, got a lot to talk about on this show. Chaos aside. So our first burner, it's going to be a big one, and one that Orioles fans are either happy about or really pissed off about, it seems like right now. And we're not only going to talk about the Charlie Morton signing, but we're going to talk about another old guy that signed as well. No offense to Charlie Morton. We're not going to age shame here, but he's up there. It's Justin Verlander. And on top of that, in this burner, we're going to work in where the young guy is going to sign, where he's going to end up, the 23-year-old Japanese phenom, Roki Sasaki, because that is a topic on a lot of baseball fans' minds right now. Where is this guy going to end up? Which team is going to win the sweepstakes? And what he's going to end up being like when he finally takes the field in a Major League Baseball stadium. Number 2, we're going to work in Sandy Alcantara. And I'm pretty sure I'm saying his name right. Had trouble pronouncing it at times, phonetically trying to say it. But, Zach, you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Alcantara.
Yeah. Alcantara.
Oh, it was in the pre-show notes.
Yeah, if you were here for the Rocco, we literally pulled up a pronunciation of his name in pre-show.
Did you spell it for me?
A-L-C-A.
No, did you spell it for me? I'm saying. Yeah, you probably did. Well, anyway, it is what it is. Sorry. Sandy Alcantara. Yeah, I did know that, but I completely butchered the name regardless because I'm terrible at pronouncing people's names. Number 3, Rip likes to call them the boppers, the bats. We're talking offense, not just pitching on this show. Luis Arraez, okay? So we're going to talk about him, Alex Bregman, just what MLB's offseason and free agency looks like from an offensive standpoint as a whole.
Pete
Alonso. Okay, Zach, didn't know you were driving the ship right now. If you were, it would be, riding it into the ground. But the last final burner, Anthony Santander. Tony Taters would hate to see him in another uniform in 2025, but it's looking like that could be inevitable, and would hate to see him in the AL East, but that's another thing that's looking like it's inevitable. So where is Tony Taters going to end up, and why it could be north of the border? So we're going to talk about all of that and more on this brand new Hot Stove Happy Hour presented by the Ryan Ripken Show. Let's
lock it in. Before we get into burner number 1, if you're in the Baltimore region, which a lot of people are, by the way, Ravens Steelers are playing on Saturday, so we got to do our due diligence here. Brought to you by M&T Bank, all for the flock. These flags, which we're actually going to have in studio tomorrow, they're available at your local M&T branch right now, but they're flying off. So you got to go into your local M&T branch and get your limited flag here today and raise up with the flock. Appreciate you all at M&T Bank. Now, Rock, let's get those burners firing. Number 1, it was the move that the Orioles made.
It was. It's Charlie Morton. Rip, you alluded to maybe a Max Scherzer coming in here, a veteran that the Orioles need on the pitching staff, a guy that some of these younger guys, the Grayson Rodriguez's, the Cade Povich's of the world, can kind of look up to and have as that veteran presence. A guy like Kyle Gibson, who was on the team, who was that kind of like, I don't want to say father figure, but in a way that it was the dad inside the clubhouse, and a guy that players can go and talk to and say, hey, I'm feeling like shit right now. I'm not pitching well. Things aren't going well. I got sent down. Like, who can I turn and talk to? who can be the guy. And for guys this season, that might be Charlie Morton. So Orioles fans might look at the signing. It's a 1-year deal and say, why are we bringing in Charlie Morton? He's 40 years old, 41 years old. He's older. Like, what is this the end all be all for the Orioles? And I want to say, no, I don't think it's the end all be all. This could be part of a bigger move to come. But to get a veteran presence like that, Rip, you've been in clubhouses, man. What does it mean, especially to the young guys, to be able to go to someone like this, not just for the pitching ability, a guy who's been there, done that, maybe towards the tail end of his career, but someone who kind of brings that veteran presence with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that is overlooked so much in this day and age. We want to look at metrics, we want to look at stats, and above all, you want to look at the results. And don't get me wrong, going out there and performing is huge. Like Corbin Burns, what he did on the field, only a few pitchers can do what Corbin Burns can accomplish. So I want to just make that point. But there is something that goes deeper than just the value of what you bring on the mound. So when you're looking at the landscape of the veterans available and Charlie Morton signs the deal, let's look at, first off, can he be dependable? Really, over the last 7 years, that full seasons, almost every single one has been 160 plus innings. So he's been durable. Talk about consistent. His career ERA is a 4.01. And if you look at his time since he was with Houston back in 2017, he has found that next gear. Now, we're going to dissect this a little bit more, Zach, because Charlie did talk to the media and address some things. And Jake really even put out some posts there that, Charlie's not there to, babysit or hold anybody's hand, but there's a presence there of being in the big leagues and having that type of force that can help. So I don't know, Zach, if you want to explain your point, or we can pull up that.
Yeah, we wanted to pull up the about the young guys right now.
Yeah, where do you have that on you right now? There it is.
So pretty much just in this very long text.
I'm happy for you. Didn't read it though. TLDR.
Yeah, exactly. But so he says, I know that the guys are young. I know that you might have experiences or some insight into moments that you've experienced yourself. And he goes on to talk about when you actually have to get to know guys, because his point is he's not going to come in here and just because he is this veteran, be like, hey, it's my way or the highway. It goes, here's what and just make pretty much himself look like, hey, as the veteran, you guys do what I say. He's like, hey, I want to get to know these guys. I want to actually, know who they are, what kind of pitcher are they, get to know them on a personal level, so then you can work with them in that way. And he talks about kind of, when you read through it all, it sounds like a leader. That's the first thing that pops off the page to me, is it's like, oh, this is a guy who he's like, hey, if I just walk in here and I'm like, hey, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, you got to do this or you're not doing. He's like, no one's going to, that's not how you get stuff done. It's, Ryan, you talk all the time about Kyle Gibson, how big of an impact he was, and Tyler Wells talked about with us, when he got sent down, Gibson every week was calling Tyler Wells to be like, hey man, what's going on? Talking to him. So it's not just about, oh, he's a veteran. Oh, he's been around for a long time. This is a guy who wants to be a leader, but not just as, hey, I'm the best, you have to do it my way. He wants to know what each individual person is good at and go from there.
And here, let me read off the parts that jump off to me. And I did my own, digging on this and what I thought of Charlie Morton and a lot of the things. He's considered a just great clubhouse guy. But I'm going to read just a little bit of this that's jumping out to me, okay? So it's saying, could I talk to a room or could I have things to say? I'm sure that opportunity could arise. But I think the value at my natural inclinations are to be caring and truly interested in getting to know people. And from there, forming relationships where there's trust. The best clubhouse guys that I've been around, you call them glue guys for a reason. It's because they can help transcend cultural differences or age differences or experience level differences or things like that. And on a day-to-day basis, that's where the impact's made. And then going to the bottom there, I'm looking forward to getting in there and spending time with each guy. And hopefully I can add something, or if it's anything that anybody needs at any time. So there it all is to wrap it up. When you're looking at Charlie Morton, his belief, his thought process. That tells you all you need to know. This is a guy that's committed to helping the team, but not only just this. And Rock, you asked me about being in a locker room. That's what it's like being in a locker room. The 162 is not going to be pretty. I think Oriole fans can sit out there and go, man, it was a tale of two halves, or what people think. And the reality is, yeah, there were ups and downs. You need a guy through the good times and the absolute crappy times that's going to show up there each and every day to do his work and to do his part to help keep this team together. And that's something that the Orioles, I think, are really going to value, especially with a young pitching staff.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw that out there.
No, absolutely. And Zach, I'm glad you left this up long enough for everyone to read like once. So it's a lot of text. It's and basically Charlie Morton, it's how us veterans, us 30, 31-year-olds feel when Zach comes into the studio at times, and you don't want to babysit him, but he's going to do his job, and that we can say what we need to say to him, but sometimes you're going to get something out of him. Sometimes you're going to get something else out of him. So
that implies that you come to the studio.
I knew you were going to say some dumb shit like that. Yeah, exactly. But with Charlie Morton, though, on a real note, you know what you're getting with this guy. You know that he's going to give up runs. Obviously, every pitcher does, but his ERA is not the prettiest thing in the world. But he's been doing this for a long time. He's got the veteran presence. He's pitched in the postseason. He's got the experience. He's got a career 4.01 ERA. It's not great, but you know what? Charlie Morton's a guy, if he has a good season, he might go out and win you 14 games. And he's done that 2 of the last 4 or 5 years that he's pitched in the show. So last year wasn't the best year. You look at his ERA, 4.19. You look at his wins and losses, 8-10, 167 strikeouts. That was good for 39th in the entire, Major League Baseball. So you look at the numbers, but again, what you can't measure and what's not going to show up in the box score or on the, stat sheet is that veteran presence and what he's going to be able to bring to the to the clubhouse and to these young guys. So again, if I'm an Orioles fan, I'm looking at this signing and taking it for what it is. It's a good, older guy that you can bring in and match up with the young pitching staff. But again, it better not be the end all be all. Charlie Morton better not be the last signing that the Orioles make as far as starting pitchers go, or the last move that the Orioles make as far as starting pitchers go. It's great, but it's not good enough to win this team a World Series down the line when it's all said and done, obviously.
And one thing, I want to close with one thing here, because the number for his ERA last year was still higher than ERAs than people that are really interested. Like Pablo Lopez, I know, first off, that trade's not going to happen. He's a Twin. The Twins acquired him. They extended him. That's their guy. Pablo Lopez is seen as a guy with a lot of upside. He had a 4.08 ERA last year. Charlie Morton had a 4.19. The year before, Charlie Morton had a 3.63 ERA. That was better than last year. Luis Castillo had a 3.64. Brady Singer 3.71. Nathan Eovaldi 3.80 last year. Aaron Nola had a 3.57. Truly, and Zach, that was the other clip. We're not going to pull it up about what Jake Rill had on the conversation. But Charlie Morton's career changed when he went to Houston. And that was with that group there with the front office and them talking about philosophy for pitching. And if you look at Charlie's numbers, his numbers took the turn for the better, specifically from that year on. Honestly, take out the one COVID year in 2020, Charlie's worst ERA was a 4.34. And other times he posted ERAs of 3.05, 3.13, 3.34, and 2023, like I just mentioned, a 3.64. So context matters here. The one thing you wonder is age, but can he still deliver with what he has? Yes, but to your point, Rock, he is not going to be that ace. He is just a piece of what you hope is going to be the whole pie. And you know what? While we're on this, because this is a part of the burner, how about the Jack Flaherty news with everything, not just the Orioles just dropping? Have you guys I've been looking around?
Lack of Jack Flaherty news. I mean, this was a guy who, a week ago, it seemed like was destined to be signed within the next 2 to 3 days. It really felt like, okay, once Corbin Burnes went off the market, the top pitcher available was Jack Flaherty. And it wasn't just, the media speculating. There was rumors of there was some movement with Jack Flaherty. Teams were looking at him. Teams were interested. Teams were reaching out. Then all of a sudden, guys like Charlie Morton signed. Guys like Justin Verlander signed. And you hear nothing about Jack Flaherty. Like you said, kind of falling off the face of the earth and the news cycle-wise right now. And I think it kind of has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about coming up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Rock, I know you wanted to make a point with the other part of who's the other veteran that just signed. That was actually more of news than.
Yes, it's and we were just talking about a guy like him, Justin Verlander, and Jacob Kalbemeyer, friend of the program. He had a great tweet last night. Said Justin Verlander received the same amount of money from the Giants as Charlie Morton got from the Orioles. So looking at that, are you upset that the Orioles didn't make a move for a guy like Justin Verlander? Are you asking questions as a not you guys, but as a fan base? Why didn't the O's go out and get Justin Verlander? And to that, Rip and Zach, I'll ask you the question. Would you have liked to see the Orioles pursue a Justin Verlander over a Charlie Morton, or do you think they got the right guy in this offseason?
I'll start with that, Zach. I'll let you finish. I think of the three veterans, like I always was eyeing, and I feel bad that I overlooked Charlie Morton because it's a guy that, of the names, he doesn't have that appeal because it's not the sexy pick, right? The Scherzer, the Verlander, where it's a name recognition. You've seen what they've accomplished in big moments. But Charlie Morton fits more of this time frame than the other guys. Scherzer, I would argue, his numbers were solid, but injuries were the key for Scherzer. Same thing with Verlander. I think Verlander's got juice left in the tank, Rock, but the problem is he was hurt last year and tried to come back at the end and didn't have it. So you have a little bit of a question mark of, all right, well, we saw some signs last year. Are we going to see the Verlander in 2023? If they do, then the Giants got to steal because he'll be a guy that's going to be contending and helping the Giants win. But I think if you're trying to have the safest play, I think Charlie Morton for the needs of your team made the most sense. Zach, what do you think?
I think that, and I also think, if I'm being honest, part of it is what we talked about earlier, and we talked about with Charlie Morton, the type of leader he is. It's not all just about what happens on the field, especially when it comes to these veteran signings. I think, like you were saying, maybe the upside, the ceiling of this signing, you'll give to a Justin Verlander because, as you said, if he returns to where he was 22, 23, then suddenly you're looking at a damn good, top of the rotation arm. But this is 42-year-old Justin Verlander coming off injuries. You don't know what Verlander you're going to get. With Charlie Morton, we talked about the one thing, the best ability is availability. He is always out there. He's going to go out there, give you 25-plus starts, eat 160-plus innings. So you get that, plus you pair it with the fact that he takes on the role as, hey, I want to be the guy that these guys can go to, that they're comfortable with, that he brings that kind of, I'm going to call it an upgrade to a Kyle Gibson. He's what I think Kyle Gibson was, plus maybe a little higher upside on what he can do on the mound at the moment. So I'm all for the signing in the moment. Like I said, I still think everyone's waiting for the move to make these moves look better, because if you bring in another top of the rotation guy for the Orioles, all of a sudden the Sagano, the Charlie Morton, those signings look really good. Mm-hmm. Then it's looking like, oh, you have a lot of solid pitching depth without Wells or Bradish even coming back. So that's where I like that.
And on top of that, Zach, if that's the case, then you're playing chess, not checkers at that point in time, and making the moves to make the big moves. So Mike Elias is very calculated. It'll be interesting to see if they make a big move when they strike. I'm expecting them to do so. I'd be really surprised if they don't make a big move before spring training or early, into the season to get a big name pitcher here in Baltimore. But crazier things have happened. We brought up Zach Lowther's comment about Morton, singing his praises, which is great to see. I also want to bring up Walter's comments before we move on. So what I really like about Charlie is his background isn't just some always had it guy at a level it's unattainable for other starters. He had to grind and find it in his 30s in a big way. And that's absolutely true, Walter. Completely agree with you there. And that's what the Orioles are looking at with Charlie Morton, bringing him in. So we talked about the old guys, though. Again, not going to Not guys for being older,
Seems
but
like you are.
They are. They're old. I'm not like in saying whatever. It is what it is. The young guy is the one that is on a lot of MLB fans' minds right now, and that is the 23-year-old Japanese phenom, Roki Sasaki. We're looking at this guy could likely end up with a big market team because they're going to be the ones to spend the money. But the New York Times did drop an article today talking about those small market teams, and Sasaki's agent, it is Joel Wolf. So he was asked about those small market teams, and he said, quote, I think that there's an argument to be made that a smaller mid-market team might be more beneficial for him as a soft landing coming from Japan. And I want to quote Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance.
They're saying there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance. Small market teams, the Orioles do fall into that category, the small to mid-market teams, Rip. Is there a chance that the Orioles could somehow, some way, bring Roki Sasaki over and get him to play here in Baltimore?
Well, I think here's the reality. You never know until it happens, but I think we're going to get more context that it would be the more of the, not saying it's 1 in 50, but 1 in 100. Maybe it's closer to the 1 in a million. Never going to say no, but more context here is that John Morosi spoke on this earlier on MLB Network, and he talked about, Rock, we're going to play this clip, 6 teams that we know are in, but there is one mystery team. So let's play that clip real quick, Zach.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about it more on the other side.
Make his decision about 1 week from right now. It is January the 15th when he's able to begin that signing period as part of the new international signing bonus class. And what I was told yesterday is that at least one additional team beyond the previously reported group of Dodgers, Padres, Giants, Yankees, Mets, Cubs, Rangers, at least one team in addition to that group has spoken with Roki Sasaki. Now, do we want to call this the mystery team?
Yes, we do.
I'll leave that to the viewer
We like the drama, JP.
I will say this, Lauren. One team that I've been keeping an eye on that has not been ruled out is Seattle. Now, the Mariners have not confirmed nor denied that they've had a meeting with Sasaki, but what we know is this. According to the reporting of Adam Jude of the Seattle Times earlier on this offseason, the Mariners were planning to have Ichiro Suzuki be part of their pitch to Roki Sasaki. Now, if you're a student of Japanese baseball history, of course, knowing that Ichiro was on the ballot, do we think there's any chance that if Ichiro said to Roki, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you, and if any free agent, any prominent Japanese baseball player would say, you know what? No thanks. I just don't think that would happen.
So we're hearing, we don't know who that final team could be. Seattle does make a whole lot of sense even from the beginning, right? Staying out west.
Yep.
Obviously, if there's some sort of connection there, I mean, Ichiro is a human bigger than the world that we live in over there in Japan. He is larger than life's the phrase. Yes, thanks, Rock. That's a great guy to pitch, but then also you're looking at the Mariners as far as development. Let's look at development. They've done a great job developing their pitchers over there in Seattle. So that could be a sleeper team. Look, I would love to believe and think that the Orioles could have a chance to try to land the guy, but when you're looking at the other teams, what they could offer, the presence around them, I feel like it's an uphill battle. I still think it's an uphill battle for Seattle, and I'm not fully buying the small market thing. I really don't. I think the biggest thing for Roki is going to be, do you go to a place that has a good culture? Do you go to a place where you think you can develop? And I don't care what they say. You go to a place where you think you can win, because that's where you're going to get the most out of a pitcher. Development and then being in a winning environment is, to me, ultimately going to help with his success when he does become a free agent in, I guess it's in 4 or 5 years down the line. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming to the Orioles. I don't think he's coming to the East Coast. I think it's going to be, I've said all along, I think the mystery team, like you said, Rip, is going to be the Mariners. And I think they have a shot. I genuinely do. I think especially because they've proven that they are in the upper, I would say 2 to 3 in just developing pitchers as of recent. So there is that small market kind of thing, feeling around Seattle. It's on the West Coast. You see that's usually where these guys who are coming over from Japan, they're staying West Coast just to be somewhat closer to home. I think he stays out that way. You have the developmental upside of Seattle. I think they are a good team. I do. They have to get bats. But, if you're Seattle, you go all out for Sasaki. You're able to then trade Castillo and you get more bats. I think that is a good, solid option for him. And selfishly, I would want him going there so that they're more willing to trade a pitcher. But that's just as a selfish Oriole aside. But I think the Mariners have a shot. As you said, Rip, I think it's an uphill shot because it's hard if the Dodgers say, hey, come play. You can pitch right behind Ohtani and Yamamoto. It's hard to decline that from the World Series champions, but I think Seattle's got a shot.
Especially if you have the opportunity to play with your guys. Yeah. And I love what John said with Ichiro. He's like, you're not going to pass up an opportunity to talk with Ichiro. If you're a Japanese player, not if you're a Japanese player, if you're any player that's in free agency, if Ichiro wants to talk with you, you're damn right I'm going to sit in a room with Ichiro and say, hey, man, like, what do you got to tell me about Seattle? What do you got to tell me about the game in general? Pick his brain, figure out what I want to do, and then go from there. And I think that is a great business decision for Seattle to say, hey, we got the guy, we got the golden child, the player that so many young kids in Japan want to grow up and be as a baseball player. Like, they look at Ichiro and they idolize this guy because of what he did over here and because of what he continues to do over there, giving back to the community. And you talk about Zach wanting to stay on the West Coast, like closer to Japan time-wise. Yes, that's something that I'm sure it's not going to factor in for every player, but a lot of these guys, it's going to be the case when you're looking at it, unless a team just throws you like a complete insane amount of money. But if it's coming down to $330 million, I'm just making up a number, from the Mets, and like $329 million from a West Coast team, you're probably going to stay on the West Coast, because looking at the time right now, it's 8:33 a.m. in Tokyo, Japan. Okay. On the West Coast, what are they? 3 hours behind, 4 hours behind from us? Not good with time. So yeah, you look at that. It's 8:33 here right now. So people are, or sorry, 6:33. So people are just getting up over there. We're getting ready to go to bed soon, most of us. Huh?
Okay.
Checking my time.
I'm just saying. I'm looking, man.
I'm doing
I got on the world clock. I have some Baltimore, Rome, San Diego, Tokyo, Los Angeles, and London. My girlfriend's in Seattle right now, so that's the only reason I know about the time change back there. But it's confusing as hell, man.
Well, the thing is, to your point about with free agents,
there, tell her to let us know.
What?
If she sees Sasaki, tell her to see something, say something.
Break the news over there. Break the news over there. But to wrap up this conversation, Rock, when you're talking about with foreign players, specifically from Japan, and their free agents. Now, Roki, to clarify for everyone just to know, Roki isn't going to be breaking the bank because there's a certain amount of limit that he can get to. But with all Japanese pitchers, that's why, honestly, Sagano coming to the Orioles is more of the shocker, because of the fact of he is going to a completely different time zone. It's going to be behind, but hey, the Orioles probably gave him the best deal that he could have. If you're going to be at a level that people suspect Sasaki to be at, and just like Ohtani and Yamamoto, you can dictate what market you want to be. So when you have the chance to make more money, it seems like those guys, if they are elite players, a lot of them have chosen that they really enjoy being out in the West Coast. So we'll see on that. But Zach, you mentioned something about if the Mariners land Sasaki, could that create some more moves in the trade market? And we covered that trade idea around Luis Castillo and all of that, which leads into another conversation in burner number 2, which we're going to get into in just a second. But again, we want to make sure you guys are hitting that like and subscribe button. The Ryan Ripken Show, we do this every Wednesday night for our MLB Hot Stove Happy Hour. We're also live every Monday and Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're live before Ravens games because we're based out of Maryland. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Ravens are playing this Saturday at the Bank, Saturday night in the wild card weekend. Ravens, Steelers, everything is on the line. And specifically here, what's on the line also, if you guys want to do your part, head down to our friends over at M&T Bank and get the All for the Flock flags. Ravens playoff flags are here, and score yours at any Baltimore area M&T Bank branch before they're gone and fly it high for the flock. And everything goes well, we might have more in store here next week if the Ravens are to advance to the divisional round. So, guys, back to action here.
Yeah.
Rock, there's been some conversations.
Yeah, there have been.
There's been some trade conversations. But speaking again, I like to look at the possibilities, and I love hearing what John has to say. There was another pitcher that people have had their eye on for quite some time. And he had an injury that really kind of people didn't know what to make of him, and it still stands, but it doesn't stop the interest. Zach, it's a pitcher in Miami that people wanted that is still there. He's coming back from his injury. Sandy Alcantara. I'll help you with the pronunciation there, Rock.
Thanks, buddy.
Teams are interested, but what does that mean? Is he available right now? Well, John Morosi explains a little bit about what he thinks is happening, and we'll react on the other side. So let's play that clip.
Also, Sandy Alcantara of the Miami Marlins. Now, I was told yesterday in a conversation, there have been, I think, at different points of this offseason, the Marlins gauged interest on Alcantara and potentially moving him. We already know that Luzardo was moved. Alcantara, though, is someone that I was told yesterday, chances are better that he is going to stay with the Marlins to begin this season. Now, of course, he missed the time due to surgery. Again, right now, the expectation is he will be with the Marlins to begin the year. There you see what the contractual situation is for Alcantara. One would assume, Lauren, the Marlins are still in a bit of a rebuilding phase. If you totally overwhelm them now, they might be willing to move him. But I think it's a much more likely situation that they begin the year with Alcantara in the rotation and potentially gauge interest around the trade deadline once everybody has seen him get back out there and compete at the major league level. Stroman, I do think, is much more available right now, along with Luis Castillo of the Mariners, especially, Lauren, as you think about this, if the Mariners are able to get Sasaki, they might be more likely to move a Castillo and then bring back a bat for Castillo as part of their larger offseason movement.
So,
yeah.
Right there, it's interesting. Rock, I'll let you continue on here. What you got?
First of all, Morosi's pronunciation of Alcantara, like that was unfreaking believable. Like he said, he just rolled off the tip of his tongue twice. So
can you roll your R's?
Alcantara. I can't. No, not at all. I used to be able to. It's, time has passed me by. So we'll try. We'll try to get better, do some practice in the future. But I'd like that notion of keeping him right now for the start of the season, because this is a guy it'll be 3 years in 2025 removed from winning a Cy Young. Okay. He had a down year last season, 7-12. ERA wasn't where he wanted it to be at a 4.14. So looking at that, if you still feel like this guy could be a big trade chip and could even get back to a portion of where he was during his Cy Young season in 2022, experiment with that over the course of the first half in the season and get as much value for him as possible. Because yes, the Marlins are in a rebuild mode right now. They have prospects out the ass. Like out the ass, I'm talking about like a crap ton of them. So it's insane. This team is in rebuild mode, and they're not maybe like full rebuild mode yet, keeping him on the roster, but they're pretty damn close. So a couple games, maybe pre-All-Star or pre-trade deadline, you dish them, you see what you can get. Or like John said, if a team can overwhelm you with a haul of prospects or good young players that you can add to this group already and they can build together, that's the best case scenario for the Miami Marlins right now, I think.
Yeah.
I think, like you guys have talked about, I think it's best for the Miami Marlins to, if they want to get the best haul for Alcantara, because you do want to show that, hey, he can still do this on, at a consistent level at the major league level. So when it comes to showcasing him, I think that's just, if you're the Marlins, if you're running the system the right way, obviously there's some risk because if he gets hurt again, there's that risk. But I think the smart move was to get the best out of a trade package would be to hang on to him and trade him at the deadline. But man, if you're another team, if you're a team maybe like the Orioles, would it be, I think the risk is well worth it. Well worth the risk to go for a guy where, yes, it's, hey, how can he bounce back? How can he, deal with this adversity again? But when he's healthy, we were talking about this before we went live, some of the best stuff in baseball. He is a bona fide ace. There are not many guys out there with the stuff that he has when he's healthy. So it's the game that you have to play. If you're the Marlins, you want to wait a little bit because you want to get the most you can for him. If you're another team, you might be saying, hey, this might be the lowest his trade value ever is. If he comes back in the middle of or if he comes back to start the year and he goes on and he's looking like a Cy Young, his trade value skyrockets again. So you're trying to, there's two sides to it. Teams might want to get him while his value is low, while the Marlins are sitting there waiting to see if they can get the most out of him.
Here's what I don't want the Orioles to do. Rip, I know you're going to have a lot to say about this. Just want to jump in real quick before we get to you, because you're going to have the good stuff to say, the things that people care about. So I don't want to see the Orioles go after a guy on make a risky move for someone like Alcantara, because it's unless they feel like, okay, this guy is trending in the right direction. I don't want it to be like a we can fix him going forward move like they tried to do with Trevor Rogers. Like I don't want to see, and I'm not comparing those two guys because they're completely different players on completely different levels. Like Alcantara, we won the Cy Young 2 years ago, so he has the talent and the ability to be a top of the line pitcher. But it wouldn't be a move, because we brought up the Orioles, that I'd like to see the Orioles make at this point in time: overspend, get risky, and hope that, okay, this guy can turn it around. And then you get to, September, October, and he's just simply not good, or like a shell of himself.
Mm-hmm. So here's how a couple things we're gonna go down a little bit of my thought process here, brought to you by me and our friends at Adams Jeep of Maryland. But in all seriousness, you got to look at things with a guy like Sandy. Healthy before the injury, you could argue he was pushing to be top 3 pitchers in baseball just on when you watched him, when he was on the mound. He looked like he was elevating his game. When you look at his age right now, it's prime. He's 29 years old, right? So when you're looking at it, you're going, okay, he's still in the prime. The one thing teams are going to worry about, though, as you guys know, and I've told you guys this about, of the expectation that a player is going to come back from an injury and find that form, right? You hope it is. It's way better than what it was back in the days when it came to injuries. And it seems like guys can come back and be stronger than they were before. Having said that, though, there's no guarantee you're going to get the same type of pitcher. So I do think Sandy's going to get a lot of interest, but I think the Marlins are in no rush to make any decision on him, because if he goes out there and pitches very well, then look what they got last year when they traded for when the Orioles traded for Trevor Rogers. Look at who they got giving up Tanner Scott. Mm-hmm. Sandy Alcantara, if he bounces back and he's himself from a couple of years ago, mm-hmm. You're looking at the Marlins getting a king's ransom for a pitcher that can drastically change how a team can view their chances at the postseason. Like, that is how impactful Sandy Alcantara is when he's healthy.
With control.
And team control. Like, this dude, I mean, one of these days I'm going to have to break him down when we get closer to the season, because he was fascinating to watch take the mound. Like, it truly was art watching him pitch. So I do have a hard time seeing it, though, at least if we're going to talk about with the Orioles in this case. I think that they're going to have to make some serious decisions on who they want if they were going to make that deal. And I also don't know if the Orioles, and if for those that saw the winter meetings when we were there, I got to sit down with Twins president Derek Falvey, who that was one of my favorite interviews.
Yeah.
Had many great people, but Derek was great. And one of the things that jumped out to me from Derek, team president, he said, when deals go well for teams, it makes for good business in the future. And the only thing I wonder here is if Trevor doesn't work out the way the Orioles are hoping, is that going to sour a relationship between the Orioles and the Marlins? Because you felt like you gave up a guy. I think Norby's going to be really good. I do. I think as a hitter, I think he's going to be good. I think Stowers has the upside. I just hope that he gets the consistent at-bats, and we'll see what happens. That I don't know if the connection is going to be strong enough. That's one thing I do worry that no one's talking about. But Sandy Alcantara, they're best to hold him until the All-Star break, in my opinion, unless someone knocks him over with the move. But I don't see a team putting it on the table not knowing if you're going to see the Sandy that is the Cy Young Award pitcher.
And he's got to go out and prove it because, again, for the Orioles, I just look at this move and it has risky all over it. I don't think the Orioles are toying with making a trade for him or, trying to go out there and get him. On top of that, do you really want to go out and get a guy that's just coming off elbow surgery? That's a risk when you have so much of that in your organization right now with the elbow issues. It's like, yeah, it probably won't happen again, knock on wood, but there's always a chance that it can. And that elbow just gives out. So that's another thing you got to look at as well. And, hopefully for Sandy, he can come back healthy in 2025, prove that he's still got it. It's again, just looking at the numbers over the course of his career, 2022 was obviously his best season by far. And that's why he won the Cy Young. But numbers wise, it was really you look at it and then you look at the other years he's had in the show. And it's I just don't know if that was lightning in a bottle or this guy can be legit going forward at 29 years old, coming off that injury in 2024. So we'll see, man. It's, a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about, and it'll be interesting to see if the Marlins end up making that move and dealing them. Zach, you got anything else on that? We're good to move on.
No, I think we're good to move on. I think we covered it. I think we're all in agreement that, talent's there, but it's also the risk. There's a lot of aspects that go into trading than just, hey, I want that guy. Can we have him?
Yep. And Rocco, thank you. You didn't get to eat this one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Shout out the Iron Rooster, man. I'll tell you what, it is great during happy hour. It's great with coffee. Love the Roostarts. Love Kyle and the Iron Rooster, man. They're great. Hey, burner number 3. This is a little bit fun, right, Rock? Because people like offense. We like to bop. We got some boppers here, man. We got a bop.
We do. There's a lot to talk about offensively. We're not just talking pitching, defense, the grinders here on the hot stove happy hour. Offensively, guys that, the one guy we're about to bring up has just been an absolute stud. And Zach, I know you're going to make your point, so I don't want to say exactly what you said word for word earlier, but I love the point that you made and the fans that are kind of off of this guy because he's not your flashy home run hitter, just like power bat that's gonna hit it out of the park every time he steps in there in the box. And that's Luis Arraez. Looking at him, but he has been fantastic. Talk about a guy that hits for contact and will get on base at will. It's him. Another guy, maybe not everyone's favorite because of just, back in the day, the Astros did a little allegedly something naughty, is Alex Bregman and the deal with him and just what he can bring in 2025 and beyond. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about a guy like Arraez, what he's capable of, what you like so much about him, Zach, and where ultimately this guy could end up the rest of his career.
What is there to like about Luis Arraez? Rocco, as you kind of alluded to, I'm dumbfounded by the discourse around Luis Arraez and especially the trade market for him with fan bases seemingly not wanting a player who is a single year removed from batting 354. And not only that, for the majority of that season, was fighting for 400. All this guy does is get on base. He does not strike out, as Rip will get to, and he is just the most consistent. A slump for Luis Arraez is when he goes 5 or 6 consecutive games with only getting 1 hit. That is a slump for this guy. I understand he's not going to put up even probably 10 home runs. He's not a power hitter. He's not going to be going gap to gap. He's not hitting doubles. He's not stealing bases. I understand that. But if you want a guy who is going to go out there, be a tough out, put the ball in play and get on base, Luis Arraez is, I'm not going to say can do it as well as anyone. He's better at it than anyone. He's proven it. This guy is one of the good, incredible talents this league has ever seen when it comes to just simply putting the ball in play and getting on base. I understand people like home runs, people like extra base hits. It's all the OPS, advanced metrics stats are showing us that you need these certain guys that do these certain things. If you put Luis Arraez in your lineup just got better, plain and simple.
Yeah. I mean, I would completely agree with you there, man. And a guy like not comparing the player, I'm comparing how I feel like MLB, like fans, like the casual fan might view him. And it's almost too kind of comparable to how when we've talked about, we had Joe Noga on for Cleveland.com, and he's like how the outside views a Jose Ramirez. He's not like the flashiest superstar, but he's a damn stud and he'll get the job done. And he plays the game the right way. And he's unbelievable when he's at the top of his game. And maybe that's a bad comparison as far as like how the casual fan might view a Jose Ramirez. Okay. Like he's not your Shohei Ohtani. He's not your Aaron Judge. He's not your even Gunnar Henderson, like the flashy talent player that you're going to maybe tune in to watch every single day. But the way they play the game, man, that's a winning mentality. And I'd love to have Luis Arraez on my team, honestly. I mean, that's a guy that you go out and get, and he helps to change the game. And you put him in a position and you're like, hey, we need you to get on base. He's damn well he's going to get on base. Like, he finds ways, man. And that's why he's been so successful. And that's why his average is the way it is. Like, numbers like that don't just grow on trees. It's the person's work ethic. It's how they approach the game. And it's about the talent as well. And he's one of the best at what he does.
Yeah, I think the point that you're trying to get across with describing it, it's underrated, undervalued.
Yes.
Undervalued is the way I like to describe Luis Arraez. And look, I understand when you're looking at a positional value for him. Where do you play him? Because it's not a guy that you're going to count on defensively. It's not what he's going to do. But I think when people look at, well, wait a minute, the home run numbers, where are all the RBIs, the runs scored, and yeah, you want to have guys in your lineup that do that. I mean, guys that get paid or guys that drive guys in. And yeah, if you can bop and hit some out of the yard, yeah, you're going to get paid too. But you got to be able to have your role, and each player needs to have a guy that can just do the dirty work and put in at bats that can really kind of set a mindset and a tone of a lineup. So when I look at Luis Arraez, hell, I wouldn't even consider him a leadoff hitter. I would put Luis Arraez either in the 2 spot or later in the lineup. But again, he's going to be the top of your order because he gets on base so much. Here's the thing, guys. Here's a fun fact. And this just wraps it in. There have been 5 players in the last 2 seasons that have had over 200 hits in the year. Luis Arraez is 2 of those 5 players. The other ones are Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna Jr. that aren't there. Ronald Acuna Jr. missed time. And then Bobby Witt Jr. And so Bobby Witt Jr. superstar. That's a talk about undervalued superstar in my opinion. But Luis Arraez, when you have a guy in your lineup that is frisky, because that's what he is. He's not going to go down swinging. He's going to keep battling. That messes with the pitcher. that messes with the timing of it. So even though his stats might not reflect that he has all these RBIs or runs, you getting on base 200 times because you're getting hits, that matters. You're wearing down a pitcher because you are constantly a pest, that matters. And every lineup could use it. I'm with you, Zach. I am baffled that when people look at their lineups,
he's won 3 straight batting titles.
It's insane.
3 straight batting
And
titles.
on top of that, he's only hit under 300 twice in his career. 2 seasons. That's it. 323 career hitter, man.
Also, and real fast, there's this like weird, like, oh, he doesn't hit anything but singles. Like when I say like he's not hitting gap to gap, he still hit 32 doubles this year, 30 doubles last year. The year before that, 31. And he's had 8-10 home runs. Is he going to put these insane power numbers up? No. But if a guy is batting 354, giving me 32 doubles and 5 home runs, 8 home runs like he did in 2023, what are we doing?
203.
What are we as a society doing? Watching someone win 3 straight batting titles, and we're saying people are like, don't want him in the lineup.
203 hits in 2023. It's like, are you kidding me, man?
Don't bring that near my lineup.
Hey, here's the other thing, too. He struck out guys last year. He struck out 29 times. The league leader last year struck out 218 times. There are over
29.
Oh, my goodness. There are over 50 MLB players that struck out over 145 times. And look, you got to have different variants. You got to have the guys that can truly bop, but then you got to have guys that can do the dirty work. Another player that we just mentioned before, Alex Bregman. Bregman is one of those hybrids for me that take him a step up from power and production. That's Bregman, but also a tough out. That's also Alex Bregman. So if I'm going to value, no shit. Alex Bregman to me is the more valuable of those two guys because of what his positional value is, plus of what he brings to the table, the intangibles. But he's going to be expensive. And one of those teams like the Tigers, the Mets, maybe the Red Sox, you're going to have to pay up for Alex Bregman. Luis Arraez, it's just the reality. You're not going to have to pay that same premium. So if you're looking for a guy that can be a spark to it or a glue to it, I should say, he's a perfect fit. And I'll tell you what, if I was the Yankees, and I know they're trying to say where would he play and all that, I hope he doesn't come to the AL East.
No,
but
please.
that's a guy that you're telling me he hits in front of Judge, and Judge can have a chance to hit a homer and it adds another RBI.
Also, that short porch left, he would put up at least 12, 15 home runs there. Like, he's got enough power to short porch it. Like, if he has to, people don't understand that bat control. If he knows all he has to do is poke it over the right field wall, he'll go yard another, add 6 more times. Now, I know 14, 15 is not a lot, but if he's also batting 340 on top of that, I mean, please don't let the Yankees get him. It still baffles me that they have fans that are like, keep him away from this lineup.
Rip, how many times did you say the league leader struck out last season?
218.
Over the course of Arraez's career, he hasn't even struck out that many times.
No.
194 total over the course of his career.
Since 2019.
And he's been playing since 2019. Let's put that
in 686 games.
Yep. So that is an insane stat.
And here's the other thing, like Brent Rooker, and congrats to Brent Rooker, by the way, getting an extension. And some people can say it's a steal. The last 2 years, his production, it is a steal, but he got a bag. He's not the younger player that he was. He was going to have to take more time to get to free agency. Worked out well for him. Brent Rooker had a phenomenal year, ended up hitting almost 300, and he struck out 177 times. But again, Brent figured out how to make his situation last. When he does damage, and it has the effect, but there's only a few players out there that can have the strikeout rate and then go out there and be able to produce when you're looking at the full body of work. And you want to take this a step further. Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman are two of the best players because they have the upside for offensive ability. Doubles, homers, you name it. They have the hit ability. Guess what? That's a big reason why the Dodgers were winning games, is because they have guys. Granted, Mookie was out, but you have guys that just know how to hit. Luis Ariz, and I see this, Tom, he'd be a nice fit in the O's lineup. He's a nice fit with any lineup. Unfortunately, I don't know if the Orioles have like the spot for him. But if I was any team that had any at-bats to give away every day at-bats, I would call up the Padres and get a deal done. There's no reason why a contending team wouldn't want a hitter like Luis Ariz in their lineup. We'll end with that point on Luis Ariz, and we'll see what happens with Alex Bregman.
Yeah.
We didn't even get into the whole like Pete Alonso thing. I know we're a little bit behind. Are you guys good to keep running a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay?
We had a really good conversation about Morton and Verlander and Sasaki and what all that is. But yeah, quickly, I thought Bregman was going to be a lock for the Red Sox, and they just haven't made it happen. So I thought it could still happen, but I'm saying they haven't made it happen yet. And I thought that was something that was going to be like happen like weeks ago. I thought it was just going to be done. So hasn't happened. We'll continue to monitor that, and maybe we'll have an answer on next week's happy hour, hot stove happy hour, whatever you call it. Yeah.
The other bopper that we didn't get to talk about before we get to the final burner here, and again, for all those that are wondering here, we are based out of Baltimore, out of Maryland. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show live every Wednesday for happy hour hot stove at 6 p.m. We are extending this happy hour a little bit. Mondays and Thursdays, we're live from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time here on YouTube and X. And then we're live on Ravens game days. And once again, stop traffic, guys. The Ravens play the Steelers in the wild card at 8 p.m. on Saturday, and brought to you by our friends over at M&T Bank. Playoff flags are here, all for the flock. So if you stop by and score yours at any Baltimore area M&T Bank branch before they're gone, and fly it high for the flock as they take on the Steelers on Saturday night. Before we get into the one bird that is in the last burner, who apparently could be going to the AL East, or staying in the AL East, I should say, I want to mention something about Pete Alonso, because we haven't talked about him. And there's been a lot of reports out there that are going on of why hasn't he had a deal done yet. And you're seeing, Zach, the recent comparison is there was one thing out there that Scott Boras was trying to angle his contract similar to what Prince Fielder got. And I don't know if we have that comparison of Prince Fielder's stats at that point of his career compared to Pete. Hate to tell Scott that, if it's true. I don't know if that's true from Scott, but Prince Fielder's numbers at this point of his career compared to Pete's are.
Yeah, I think this is the previous 3 years before they hit free agency.
How old's Pete right now, Zach? We can go age, or we can go what you want to do with the previous 3 years before free agency. Like how old's Alonso right now?
God, he's like what, 31?
Give me a number on that.
I think he's a little bit younger than that.
He's 30. He just turned 30.
Okay, he's 30. Fielder started playing when he was 21. He only had 3 years after he was 30, and one of those years was an all-star in Texas. So if you want to bring up yours right now, and then I'll tell you what he did from 30 on, we can go from there. But we're talking about age. But if you want to go off the comparisons, go for it, because you got it up right now.
Yeah, I mean, the point being here, there's two things. It's one that he's looking for a 6-year deal, as the reports out there. And Prince Fielder at the time was such a premium guy to have. Now, I'm not discrediting anything that Pete Alonso has done. The dude's had 120 homers, 337 RBIs. You know, the biggest difference right there, obviously, is going to be batting average and on-base percentage. Like, the OPS for Fielder's 956. I mean, shirts and pants, man. Prince,
unbelievable,
was a beast. I don't know if a lot of teams, once you get to your age 30 season, are going to want to give out 6-year deals unless you're that kind of phenom type player where there's more value than just hoping that you're going to hit until you're 40, you know? So I think that that's something where Pete's really going to have to look into. And Rock, did you want to pull up stats from after the age 30 seasons for Prince?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I have him here, and at 30, that was his first year with the Rangers. He hit 247, but second year with Texas, I mean 31, hits 305 and finishes 13th in MVP voting, and then was an all-star that season. So you could get a guy that ends up at that age with that talent who is just known for being a damn good hitter. It comes in and helps and hits the shit out of the ball at age 31. And Prince Fielder was not a small dude. We know that. He was known for being a big guy, but a quick guy. And that speed around the bases and that his inside the park home run was incredible, man. I still watch that highlight to this day. And you guys, I mean, in the chat probably remember it too. But it was awesome to see the big man move. But again, Rip, 30, Pete Alonso's 30, you said, Zach. It could be risky to give a guy like that a big contract. And you're talking about a first baseman, not a catcher, because we talked about like Adley, how he may only have one shot at a big contract at his age and what that would mean for his position. But Pete Alonso, like someone could work. He doesn't have to play first base for the rest of his life or the rest of his career. You could DH him. You let him hit a little bit. You can, figure that out depending on, but if you have a spot for him and seeing what he did last season, he was the force that helped carry the Mets. I mean,
the Mets had a lot of forces. They had that.
They had a lot of forces, but
Lindor played like, I mean, he was arguably the MVP, but I'm saying like Pete Alonso was a heart and soul. He was the heartbeat of that team. And he was the guy that had that never say die attitude. Like when the Mets needed someone to step up in a big moment, Pete Alonso came along and kept them alive. So if you feel like he can do that and help you contend for a World Series, by all means, bring him in and pay him what he wants.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, we talked about this, and because I think is a good conversation, is that Pete's value, I think, decreased when you saw some of these other deals for corner outfielders or first baseman, right? Because like they're kind of in a similar thing. Teoscar Hernandez's deal, Anthony Santander's value, again, like we don't know where that's going to be. We thought it was going to be higher. And then specifically for first base, look at Christian Walker. Now, Christian Walker's a little bit older, but he signed a 3-year, $60 million deal. And Pete is looking for something way past that. And that's a big extension. And I think that's why there's so much of a disconnect, is because the market is saying, Pete, we're not going to give you this. And the other teams are also, or Pete's trying to say, well, look, I think I deserve a little bit more. And that's where the disconnect is. And one thing, though, I'm curious, and this was a quote that I saw David Wright commented on this, and shout out David Wright for getting his uniform retired for the Mets. Mm-hmm. But David Wright talking about Pete Alonso's free agency, and I think that this is something that could come into play. It's a different feeling when you're drafted, developed, and playing for the team that gave you your first opportunity. There's a lot more pride when you put that jersey on every night, and I hope he remembers that and doesn't lose – sorry, I lost it for a second – and doesn't lose sight of that. And that was noting, observing Chipper Jones and Derek Jeter spent their entire careers with their respective teams and recognized after the fact of just how much it meant that they only played for that organization. So Pete's going to have a double thing because, Zach, I'll be honest, what's the best fit for him? It is going back to the Mets. And with the team, run it back for a team that's going to be contending for a World Series. I think that's the double thing I'm looking at here is the Mets gave him a good offer, and it's also the place that he's developed himself and become a pretty good player.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense. I mean, you pretty much are going back to a very similar team that made all that noise last year, went to the DS, and you add a Juan Soto to the mix. So now all of a sudden you have Francisco Lindor, you have Juan Soto, you add back Pete Alonso. Then you also have guys like Francisco Alvarez, you had Vientos. Like they have an incredible core, especially in the lineup, where I think it just makes sense for Pete to go back. I think it would be, obviously money is going, if he gets the perfect deal somewhere else, he gets the perfect deal somewhere else. But if all the money is similar, you don't have to move. You're sitting there, you're back to where, like you said, you've developed. You're back in that routine. Like last year, it's kind of that let's finish what we started mentality. And I just think that makes a whole lot more sense because you know what you're getting back into. You don't have to learn a whole new organization. You're comfortable there. And I think this team, with the addition of Juan Soto, can compete for a World Series. So it all points back to, it's not like, hey, I'm going back and giving up a chance to compete. He probably has a better chance of winning it this year than they had last year. So,
Rip, what you eating there, buddy?
I'm actually enjoying my roost tart.
Oh, nice.
The one that, yeah.
Well, we can stay on the food topic and talk. You can talk taters if you'd like. Good transition.
We could. That's a good way
Terrible
to transition.
Yeah, that was a huge eye roll. I get it. Yeah, that was corny. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
so,
and
two thumbs
hit
down.
that dislike for Rocco.
Two dudes.
Actually, don't hit that dislike button. Hit that like and subscribe button here, Ryan Ripken Show. But Rock, we got one more burner, and you mentioned you're hungry. You're always hungry. You're always in bulking season.
Always.
The Tony Taters. That's where we're going with burner number 4, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes. And the Toronto Blue Jays must have the best PR department in the damn world, in all of sports, because they just find ways to be a part of the conversation. But they're a team that is going to show up to the party most times, but like they don't know the two fraternity brothers where they can get in. They're going to be stuck there and having to go to another, because like it's a tale as old as time. They find a way to be in contention for a player, Shohei Ohtani, other guys as well. It's been like the Blue Jays are always that team that it's like Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, and then the Blue Jays. But they really have nothing to show for it. What have they done this offseason? What have they done? Who have they signed? Who have they brought in? And, people could say, what have the Orioles done this offseason? Who have they signed? Who have they brought in? I don't see the Orioles name popping up every 2 seconds on my Twitter notifications or on my feed saying that they want this player or they want that player. I do not hate the Toronto Blue Jays. Very nice fan base, very nice people, and a team that I wish nothing but success to. But to say they're in the sweepstakes for Anthony Santander, it's like until you prove that you can go out and sign someone or are going to bring someone in, I'm not buying it at all. But Anthony Santander, you know what? We'll play their game. Link to the Toronto Blue Jays, potentially signing, going up there and playing for the Jays. And that would suck to see Tony Taters not only in another uniform, but to see him remain in the AL East. I would not want to see that guy a few times a year because of his bat and because of what he's capable of. It would suck. And just the pain of seeing him in another uniform. But if the Blue Jays can go out and get him, great. I don't think that's the best fit for Anthony Santander at all. Again, we talk about, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, you think that it's not the right fit. And look, I have my doubts, but there is someone out there that does think it's the right fit, Zach. And one of the baseball writers, John Heyman, he thinks, hey, this is the destination, which we can react more on the other side. But let's play that clip about Santander.
Santander, right. I don't have him up there, so I'm glad that was asked. I do think the Jays are the most likely candidate for him. I've seen Detroit. Detroit's got a pretty good young outfield. I don't see that as that likely. Angels, again, same with Alonso. I think they're apart on the years. As I said, Artie, the Angels do want another big bat. He would qualify. Complicates the situation, though. You get him, then Ward's the center fielder. I'm not sure how that works. I don't know. They might have to rejigger things. So Santander is not the best fit for Detroit or the Angels. Toronto, to me, makes the most sense.
So I'm with you. I don't think that Toronto is the best fit. There is one place I do think he's a very good fit, and it's good for this team if they make this move. And Zach, I know you know where I'm going with this. I wonder if Rocco does.
Go ahead.
Where do you think I'm going, Rock?
Well, I know what you said before, and that's New York.
No, I did say that, but wrong now because different moves happen. Rocco's wrong. Hashtag.
It's wrong. Hashtag.
Rocco's wrong.
Ruck Faco.
That is an interesting hashtag. That's been trending in the Discord.
Great one. Very creative. Assholes.
There's one other team, Zach. They're They've just been winning for years in the American League. Some
Just
say
got
they're
rid of
trying to
a quarter
rebuild.
outfielder.
And they did just get rid of a quarter outfielder about a month ago, 2 months ago.
Doug Dimmadome. The Dimsdale Dimmadome.
Fellas, dude, I think that to me, if I'm Tony, if you're chasing the money and Toronto gives you the best deal and you want to take that, I will. Hey, congrats, happy for him. I just haven't bought what's been happening with Toronto. It just hasn't been working out. But Houston looks like, if I'm a hitter too, why wouldn't I want to go there? Short porch and left. Tony is one of those bats that can put up another big year. You have Yordan Alvarez, you have Altuve there still. Man, I think Tony would fit perfectly for the Houston Astros. I just don't think Toronto or the Angels, you're only going there to me if you're chasing the money, because I don't think the winning is going to have that opportunity that Houston would provide, Zach.
Yeah, I think if Tony is looking for a place with a clear direction, Toronto definitely is not the place, because I have no clue what's going on in Toronto. It feels like every single year they are playing this very interesting balanced job of, hey, we might go for it or we might tear this entire thing down, and nobody knows. You know, we sit there and they talk about, hey, they're in on Corbin, they're in on Wanso, they're in on Shohei Ohtani. Oh, hey, they're in on trading for this guy. They get Andres Jimenez. You know, they go make these trades. Like, okay, but then it's also, hey, if the right deal comes up, they could trade Vladdy. They could trade Bo Bichette. And you're like, what is going on? You know, Vladdy's a free agent after this season. If I'm Tony, I want to know if Vladdy's staying if I'm signing here for 5-6 years. You know, am I about to sign here just for, you know, Vladdy to leave, you ship off Bo, and then I'm sitting here by myself and, you know, I have to endure another rebuild. You know, it just doesn't sound, and like you said, Ryan, if that's where the money is and, you know, that's where he wants to go, earned every, you know, earned every dollar of that. But I think if you want to go perfect fit, I think it's Houston. I think that would be, I wouldn't mind him out in LA, but that's mostly because then I wouldn't have to really, you know, I could just
Dodgers or Angels though.
Angels. If he went to the Dodgers,
I would hate it if he went to the Angels, because again, he'd be rotting in LA with the Angels. He would be
Mike Trout,
rotting. That organization cannot figure it out. They don't have a clue right now, and I don't see them figuring it out anytime soon. I would hate to see him there. It would be awful. Absolutely not.
I'm just trying to root for the guy.
Oh man, you want to see this? You want to see this guy succeed, but not succeed in a way where it's going to be like in New York with the Yankees or in Boston with the Red Sox. The Astros, it would suck, but like I think everyone can come to the collective agreement that they'd love to see Tony Tater succeed. He was a fan favorite, former Rule 5 pick. I mean, what the guy has had to endure here in Baltimore over the course of his career wasn't great at times, but he's battled through it. And he was able to go to back-to-back postseasons with them. And then he hits 40-plus home runs last season. So he's a guy that you root for because of how he's grown and what he's done and who he is. So would love to see him on a contender, but again, I don't want to see him rot at all. So, you know, if he follows the money, great. What's best for him and his family and his career, don't blame him, but would love to see him holding a World Series trophy high at some point in time if he's not going to do it here in Baltimore.
Rooting against the Orioles, you just want another team in the World Series.
I can't wait to see Santander hoist the World Series title with the Yankees, is the exact quote from Rocco to Sango.
I didn't say that.
That was like verbatim.
Listen, stop, put some roost starts in your mouth and stop putting words in mine.
You know what, Rock? There's a few things that we could continue to say here.
You're a sick man.
What I'm saying about with the answers that you're saying, not about that. You got, you know what, Rock?
Rip, I know where your mind goes. You're not fooling anybody. You can try to fool the chat, but you're not fooling me.
Rocco, no one is fooled by your antics, specifically what you think is the call for the South Carolina Gamecocks. It's very different. It's an interesting thing.
Can we do it again?
We're good. We're good. I think we're also wrapping up with everything here. One thing before we wrap up everything though, and again, if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. Two topics. One, I do think we didn't get to the Brent Rooker extension. We'll get to that tomorrow after our football coverage, and talk about the other question is when will we see extensions for some of the young core? That is a question that people want to know, but that's for a longer period of time. Like that will be our big discussion until there's a deal that breaks tomorrow, and then we have to scrap the whole damn thing. But on another note, personal note, I just want to touch on the news with Brian Mattis. I wanted to touch on it earlier, but I think it's good as we wrap up this show. Guys, I told you, extremely shocking, beyond sad, still trying to get the answers. Personally for me, Brian was a guy that, my memories with him I was still a teenager. I was actually I was transferring from South Carolina. I went down to spring training to see people, and I got to hang with Brian and just talk with him. And I think sometimes we all understand and can relate to this. You can just have a conversation with someone where it's just very easygoing. You feel relaxed and you feel welcomed in the conversation. And that's how I felt with Brian. He made me feel relaxed. He made me feel welcome. I still remember I was messaging with him, last time I talked to him was during the 2024 season. So perspective, things can change in a heartbeat. May rest in peace, 37 years old. Life's precious out there for everyone. So continue to tell your friends and family you love them. Just my condolences to his family. It's a hard thing to kind of, shocking's an understatement, but it is. Truly is a shocking development. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Well put, Rip.
Yeah.
Well put. Yeah.
Well, guys, we appreciate everything here, and we appreciate you putting up with Rocco with us. But we're going to continue to do this every Wednesday, MLB Hot Stove Happy Hour. So hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow, though, for our regularly scheduled Ryan Ripken Show from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, where we're going to have guests and kind of breaking down things as the Ravens get ready for the Steelers. And to get you guys ready for one more time, we're going to have flags like this flying around the studio tomorrow, brought to you by M&T Bank. And look, guys, limited edition Ravens playoff flags are there. Score yours at any Baltimore area M&T Bank branch before they're gone, and fly it high for the flock. Rocco, we will get that flying high for you, my friend, as we get
flags,
ready.
Man. They're really nice. And if you're not going to fly them around to the stadium, you could always put them on your wall like Zach. Clearly he needs a new layout. So something nice in the background to go behind him, something nice you could put on your wall or give to your kids. I used to hang flags and posters in my bedroom all the time, kind of like Zach's doing right now in his childhood bedroom that he's recording this podcast out of. So
No, that's
love them. They're awesome. And go get yours today.
Yeah. Rocco always just has to throw in just like a zinger for no reason.
Rocco's recording in his kitchen, and he's
oh man, the place you crossed me up in, man. That was ridiculous. Zach walked in my house and he's like, what are you doing?
Set up a camera,
puts his phone down, comes over, and then he just goes, and he's like, you just got crossed up. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, what the hell just happened? What the hell just happened? And that's what you get from Zach. So it's great. Yeah. That's
great. We have a great collection, but hey, we appreciate each and every one of you. And depending on our schedule tomorrow, and you can blame Nick, Joe, if about call-ins, we want to do call-ins tomorrow. If not, no doubt we'll have it on Saturday for the pregame show. Just depends on the schedule. We do have Qadri Ismail joining us tomorrow. Nick is planning to join us, and we might have another guest as well. But fellas, anything else before I sign us off?
No, I think we're good.
I think that's it. Heck of a show. We will resume the drinking duties for this. I will in February, going through dry January right now. So we're getting there. I don't know what you have, Rip, but it's happy hour without the happy. So we'll get there soon.
I'm happy, but it's a mindset, Rocco. It's all mindset. But hey, everyone, appreciate you guys. Have a day, have a night as always, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time for a brand new episode of the Ryan Ripken Show.
Say something.